In this video, we'll look at two different ways that students can complete assessments online through Google Classroom. The first will be using Google Docs, and the second will be using Google Forms. I'll put the time on the screen where the Google Forms part starts, in case you want to skip to that. So, got this assessment that traditionally I would have printed out and handed to students. They would have written on the paper and given it back to me. But times have changed, and we are looking for ways to do this electronically. In Google Classroom, if I want to have students complete an assessment, I'm going to set that up in the Classwork tab. From here, I'll go to Create and Assignment. I'm going to give my assignment a name and fill out the instructions. Next, I'll add an attachment from Google Drive. And on this drop-down, since I want each student to complete this, I'm going to change the setting from Students Can View File to Make a Copy for Each Student. So Google will make however many copies you need for each student. Each person will be able to edit only their copy, but you'll be able to see every copy. We can assign this to multiple classes at once. Select which classes you want to assign it to here. And you can decide to only assign it to particular students from your list. If you have an assignment that comes in a few different versions, differentiated by student needs, this would be the place to do that. You can assign a point value to it here. You can also opt just to leave this blank. Due date and topic you can fill in. Topic, you may or may not have specific units set up in your class already. Wouldn't be a bad time to set them up. If it's within a brand new unit that you don't have set up, you can create a new topic here. But this is optional. You can also add a rubric, but we aren't going to go into that in this video. Originality reports is something that will show you how much of the document that students turn in has been copied from online sources. Be a great tool to use if students are doing longer writing pieces. And then up here, I can either assign right now, or I can opt to schedule it for a later date. I can also save this without it being published if I want to come back and finish something later. I'll go ahead and click Assign. Now we can see that assignment in our classwork part of the class, and then if we go to Stream, we'll also see that it's posted there. When you click on that, you'll see how many people have turned it in, how many people still have it assigned to them but haven't turned it in. And if you click on these links, it won't work on mine because I don't have any students in this made-up class. But you'll see a list of students that have turned it in, and below that a list of students who have not yet turned it in. And clicking on any one of those student names will bring up their document. You can see their document at any point. You can also add comments at any point and give some feedback in the process if you'd like to. Ultimately, once it's graded or once it's complete, it'll be moved into a completed status, and you can then assign a grade to it from there. Alternatively, I could make a Google form to house this assignment. So let's look at how to do that next. So this is the same assessment we looked at just a moment ago, but this time through a Google form. So go to your Google Drive, go to New, More, Google Forms. We'll give it a name and a short description. This method will take a little bit longer to set up because you have to manually copy text in for each question and make some answer choices as well. Decide how you want students to answer. The benefit to doing all this is that sometimes your short answer and multiple choice questions on these assignments will be pretty easy to automatically grade. So you might save some time on the grading side of things or the feedback side of things. Just going to put these general instructions up at the top as a text box. And then I'll start with my first question. There we go. By default, Google Forms has selected multiple choice. That doesn't make sense on this question though, so I'm going to instead select, I could do short answer or paragraph here. Short answer makes a pretty small text box that you're typing into, so I'm going to opt for paragraph, hoping that students will give me a little bit more writing on this one. I want everybody to complete this one, so I'm going to make it a required question. I could duplicate this if I have only small variations between this and the next question, and so I'm going to go ahead and do that. My second question had the same stem as the first one, but a different question at the end. This time, there's only 3 different types of heat transfers, so multiple choice actually makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to keep that as it is and change option 1 to conduction, convection, and radiation. I'll continue like this until I have all of my questions filled out. Now, in addition to writing out the questions, there are a few other setup things that you want to do before you send out this form. First, probably a good idea to have a spot for their name on here. We'll actually set it up so it'll collect their email address automatically, but names will be a little easier for us to work with. So I'm going to go back up to the top. I'm going to add a question on the right side here. And I'm going to separate this out by last name and first name. Last name, and then I'll duplicate that. First name. And let's do one more class period. And instead of having students write in their class period, I'll do this as a multiple choice. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, we'll say, are my 6 classes. That way when you go to enter something into PowerSchool, if this is a graded assignment, you'll know which class to pull up. Additionally, we need to set this up so that it gets treated as a quiz. So up at the top right, we're going to go to Settings. Let's go ahead and collect email addresses. I'm going to leave this on so that only students with their login information through Walkie Schools can complete this. And I'll go ahead and limit it to 1 response for each person. I'm going to treat this one like a quiz. I don't want them to go back and edit answers after that initial submit. I don't want them to see a summary of other people's responses on this. Presentation won't have much that we need to do anything with. If you have multiple pages worth of questions, it's not a bad idea to include the show progress bar. You could do shuffle question order, but we're not in a computer lab where people might be looking over at somebody else's computer, so probably useless right now. On the Quizzes tab, let's go ahead and make this a quiz. And then I want to change this. Since I have questions that I need to grade manually, I'm going to select Later after manual review. If you had all questions that can be automatically graded, then you could release the grade immediately as well. So students answer those 5 multiple choice questions and immediately get to see that they got 4 out of 5 of those correct. After they get that response, this allows them to see different options here, how many points they got, what the correct answer was, which questions they missed. I'm going to leave all those checked. Since I have enabled this as a quiz, there's something else I can do now when I go to the actual quiz questions. If I click on that, you can see now that there's an answer key option available. So I'm going to click on the answer key. And then there's a point value associated with this. You can alter that if you like. Add answer feedback. And this is where you can basically provide an answer, a correct answer for them. They won't see this until after the quiz is done, so it's okay to give away the correct answer. You can also link to additional resources within Google Drive or a YouTube video that explains answers to this question. I'll click Save Now. And I can go through and do this for all of my questions. The multiple choice ones will have you select a correct answer. This one is conduction. I'll leave this one at 1 point, and I can add additional feedback there. Anything that's multiple choice and has an answer selected ahead of time will get automatically graded when students respond to this survey, though since we have it set up so that they're not getting a response immediately, they don't see that until you manually submit it back to them. From here, we can send this, and I'm just going to grab a link. That's a long URL, so I'll shorten it and copy. Then I can share this in my class. Add a link. And post. Here's an assessment I used with students a few years back. You can see that now that students have taken it, next to responses, it says how many people have completed it. If I click on responses, I can start seeing the answers that students gave. Now, I've already done grading on these, so we can see a score distribution, which is useful. Down below, there's some information that gives away student identities, so I'm going to hold off on showing that. If I switch over to question, you'll see that there are a few options here. Got name and period first, and then a short answer question. If there are identical questions or identical answers to a question, those get grouped together, so you only have to grade those once. The feedback that we put into the question earlier will show up automatically here, but if you have specific feedback for a student, you can always hit this pencil to edit that or include new feedback. There's also a spot to input a numerical grade if this is a graded assignment. When we've finished grading all of these, we can move on to the next feature. You do want to hit save before you move anywhere, otherwise you'll lose your progress. But do notice that as soon as you hit save, it jumps you back up to the top, so you probably want to do a whole page at once. Then we can move on to the next question. If you'd prefer to read all of a person's questions before they move on to the next one, you click on the individual tab, and again, scroll down, and you'll be able to see all the answers for that one person at the same time and grade those together. This little box at the top will show whether that score has been released or not. In the summary tab, there's also another one just a little further down with the list of students who have completed the assessment that will say whether the score has been returned and have a link to return those scores. You can return them one at a time as you grade them, or all at once when you're finished.